everyone, and welcome back to A Wild Approach. Today's video is going to be quite a bit different than my typical videos, and I hope that you bear with me on this one. I watched Lisa Likes Plants. That is a YouTube channel, and that is a gardener, specifically a native plant gardener here on YouTube. And I saw her video, and it kind of inspired me, I guess you could say, to want to talk about things that can kind of limit our abilities maintaining a garden or even starting a garden. And I want to preface this whole video to say that I'm incredibly lucky. I am able to do a lot of things, and I'm able to get a lot of things done in the garden. Now, what this video is about the fact that some of us aren't always able to, perform or maintain our garden to the level that maybe someone else our age could. And so this can come in a lot of different forms and can be for a lot of different reasons. And what this video is supposed to do is it's supposed to kind of like shed light on something that's probably obvious to some extent, but that we just don't really talk about a lot because, I don't know, I think that there's this push and pull with the native plant community when it comes to accessibility to a garden and to create a wildlife habitat. And what I mean by this is we really want to encourage people, everyday people, regular people, to create a wildlife garden at their home. And that is a very important thing to try to do. It's really, in my opinion, a positive thing to try to encourage people to create habitat for wildlife at their home because, regular old lawn takes up so much surface area of our country and of the planet. And that takes away from the diversity and habitat that we could have if it wasn't for all these residential lawns everywhere. So this video is to not take away from that. I still want to encourage every one of you who can possibly participate to create a garden at your house. There's no question about that. Do you need a short, quick guide to get started in wildlife gardening? Well, turns out I've got just the thing. I just came out with a new free ebook just for you, and it's called A Wild Approach to Gardening 101. And it's available on my website today at macylou.com/shop. It's free, so go check it out. What do you have to lose? Hey guys, can you do me a quick favor, pretty please? Could you hit the like button and the subscribe button under this video? It really helps me know which videos resonate with you guys. Now let's get back to the show. And so that is why I find it difficult to talk about this topic sometimes, because all too often a lot of videos that you'll see about native plants and about diversity of plantings, wildlife habitat, creating a garden in your own on your own property and creating this habitat in your own property, too many people are like, anybody can do this. It's so easy. Anybody can do it. And I think that to an extent, a lot of people can do it. Maybe typical people can do it. And I don't want to say that anyone can't do it, but I do want to acknowledge that there are people out there who do have limitations, physical limitations. And, I definitely want to keep reiterating that I have a lot of abilities. I am able to get out and I'm able to garden. And I do not take that for granted. In fact, what I'm about to talk about and what I suffer from is I'm going to talk about scoliosis. So I do have scoliosis, and there are different levels of scoliosis. There are different, it's on a spectrum, so to speak. Like you can have a different curvature, severity. And when I was diagnosed with this, I was like around 17 years old, and I was just devastated. I was heartbroken, and seeing the x-ray is it's terrifying. And they're basically telling me like, You can't do any special exercises. You can't do any, you can't like wear one of those braces or whatever to fix this. Your curvature is too severe to just do these little movements or wear these little temporary braces, or I think it's a back brace. I forget what it's called, but I'm sorry. But there's this thing that some people with scoliosis can wear that kind of like helps them kind of straighten when they're a certain age. And sometimes this is done when you're younger, I think, before, like kind of as you're growing. And by this point I was 17 and my curvature was too severe for this. So they were like, the way to fix this is surgery. And I was just devastated. And I never did get the surgery. I was too scared to get the surgery, and at the time, I didn't know how it would get paid for. I just didn't have the funds. I, was like 100% sure my family didn't have the funds. It was just one of those things where I was like terrified of the cost. I was terrified of the surgery itself. And I was just bawling my eyes out, quite frankly. And ever since then, I just deal with it. And that sounds really almost cold to say, but I don't mean like I deal with it and I just move on. Like, it is a part of my life. And when I was 17, I didn't really have a ton of symptoms. Like, the signs that I had scoliosis were more of a physical, I could see it in the mirror. I could tell that my body was shaped kind of funny, and I didn't really know why, and I just thought, well, this is just a weird quirk. And then I didn't really talk to my parents about it. I was talking to a friend about it, and it got back to my parents, and that is why I ended up going to the doctor about it. So, it's just a part of my life, and it does limit me in certain ways. And one of those ways is that sometimes I can just be, and to me, I can laugh some of this off because it is really silly. But it's also a serious issue for people, not just me. Like, there's so many people who have scoliosis, right? But sometimes I'll just go out in the garden and I'll just, I'll be on the hill, my garden's on a hill, so that already kind of adds to gravity, and issues in that sense. But I'll just like squat a certain way, kneel a certain way. I'll just barely subtly move a certain way, and it is the wrong way. My body is like, girl, no, that is not the way. And I'll just have like this horrible pain, and it feels like it's out of nowhere because I'm like, I'm just moving like a human being moves. Like, what? And I can't necessarily predict what my body's, like how my body's going to react. And so I am super lucky. I'm able to get out there. I dug a trench from my backyard to my front yard at one point, and I was like grieving my mom's passing at the time, and so I was just like throwing myself into the physical labor. So I can do some pretty hard things in the garden. But I also sometimes have to take rest, and probably I would say more than your typical person. So like I can go really hard for a while, and then I might accidentally injure myself. I've done this multiple times. I've accidentally injured myself in ways that have nothing to do with my scoliosis, or at least I don't think they have anything to do with my scoliosis. And then I've injured myself in ways that do have to do with my scoliosis. And so sometimes I go too hard, and I find out the hard way that there was a limitation there that I didn't understand that I had. And of course, this can worsen as you get older. All of us, for the most part, are probably stronger or better at manual labor as we're younger. And then as we get older, it gets harder to do these things, and it gets more taxing on the body, and you reach these walls that before you just didn't know were there. And so this video isn't just about scoliosis, it's actually about like injuries in general that you can get from gardening. It's about scoliosis. It's about getting older. It's about anything that can limit your gardening abilities. And what I have to say about this is there's no shame in it. Let's just take the shame out of it completely. If you can no longer garden the way that you used to, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with you, and you still have the same worth that you had before. Our bodies are limited in general. There's only so many things we can do. And as we get older, those limitations can get harder on us, and the limitations can be bigger. But there's no shame in that, and we should stop kind of assuming that everybody can do the same amount of maintenance on a garden. We should stop assuming that everybody can do the same amount of work on their garden. And we should stop really putting our nose up at gardens that are messy, and gardens that have flaws, and gardens that have a lot of weeds. My garden has a lot of weeds. Part of my problem is I know that I am going to one day get to the point where I can't do hardly anything anymore physically in the garden. I know one day that's probably going to happen. And so I find myself in this weird in-between where I'm really rushing to like kill my lawn and reduce my lawn as fast and as much as possible, right? Because it's important, because we really need to do it. And I find myself rushing to like create new garden spaces, and then I find myself unable to keep up with the maintenance of said garden spaces. And I've decided to just be okay with that. Quite frankly, I've decided that it's okay. It's okay if my garden isn't perfect. It's okay if there's plants there that I don't want there. It's okay if it takes me time to get rid of the problematic plants and to put in the native plants that I really want there. It's okay if in the middle of it, it's a mess and there's a lot of things going on and there's a lot of chaos. Because I think that there's this funny thing that can happen is when you're rushing to try to hurry and plant as many native plants as you can and create as many new garden spaces as you can, because you know that you have limitations already and you're just looking to the future and like, one day I'm not going to be able to dig a hole for a tree. One day I'm not going to be able to do this, that, or the other. And one day I'm not going to be able to dig a trench from my backyard to my front yard. And so I find myself front loading all of that, if that's the term, to now, and just trying to boom, 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 get as much done as possible and create as much new habitat as possible. And I still stand by that, but at the same time, I can see kind of the funny thing that can come up in that it can create a lot of maintenance for me now that I can't keep up with because I still have limitations now. Does that make sense? And so I just want you to know that if you are older, if you can no longer get up and down in the garden, if you struggle with different gardening tasks, that's totally okay. And I just want to just open people's eyes to the fact that, like, not everyone has the same amount of money. Not everyone has the same amount of time. Not everyone has the same amount of physical ability. And all of these things, time, physical ability, and money are going to play a role. For example, if I can't do something in the garden, I can ask a friend for help for free, or I can hire it out, or my husband can help me. Like, right? Those are kind of the other options. And there's no shame in asking for help for free from a friend if you can't afford to hire help. And there's also no shame in hiring help. There's really not. If you can afford to, have at it. And there are different levels of help that you can afford. Like, some people, their maintenance is expensive, and then other people, their maintenance in your garden is cheaper. And that's just a fact of life. Like, some people are going to charge more than others. And so I've kind of utilized all the strategies so far. I've had people help me for free. I've hired people to help. And then, you know, my husband has helped me. And it's been a combo of kind of all of this together. Me, friends, family, people I hire, you know, it's a community effort. You know, it's not just me doing everything. Do I do a lot of it myself that you see? Yeah, but I can't do it all the time forever. And I recognize that every human being has their own strengths and their own weaknesses. And quite frankly, the thing that helps me with my scoliosis is having a mix of rest time where I'm sitting and active time where I am moving and I am bending and I am walking, or I'm exercising, or I'm digging holes, or whatever the case may be. With my scoliosis and my specific personal abilities, I find that I do better if I have a mix throughout my day of moving and sitting. If I sit all day, I'm in pain. If I'm moving all day, I'm in pain. I need a mix of the two. And that's just how I am. That's going to change. That's going to be different for everybody. You might have to have more sitting time than me. You might have to have more standing and moving time than me. It all just depends on our own individual physical abilities and our physical limitations. And sometimes it's just about time. I didn't really talk about that yet, but I want to talk about time. Some of us have more time than others. There are people that have almost no time to garden. They're working 2-3 jobs. They're working like 90-hour work weeks or something. And they're just hustling. And when they get home, they don't have time to garden. They just basically eat dinner and go to bed. Those people also deserve to have nature around them. And I personally believe that even if they don't have time to garden, maybe they have time to have a pot, on their porch that they just, nurture when they can. And it's okay if sometimes plants don't make it. Let's take the shame away from plants dying too. Like, plants are going to die and plants are going to live. There's going to be a mix of things dying in your garden and things living. And I think that sometimes the joy in gardening is the most important thing, second to maybe the wildlife using the garden. So I think that someone that has pretty much no time to garden at all, I'm not going to shame them. I'm not going to point at them and be like, hey, you're screwing up in life because you don't have time to garden. That's not fair. Maybe they'll have time to garden in the future. Think about it. Maybe they're hustling right now and they've got those multiple jobs and they're saving up for a goal. And maybe one day they don't have 2 or 3 jobs. Maybe they finally have less work hours in the future and they can get a little bit of gardening done. And there's just so many different things regarding how I feel about this and the way that it's talked about and the way that we just kind of assume that because we can get something done, that everybody else can get something done. It's kind of like this, and I know that this is maybe the wrong term, but I think we use it in our other topics, and it's like survivorship bias or success bias or something like that. It's like, because I was able to dig a trench from my backyard to my front yard means anybody can do it. That's just not true. That's just factually inaccurate. My grandmother couldn't have dug a trench from my backyard to my front yard, a year ago, 3 years ago. She couldn't have done it. Just physically, she couldn't have done it. And there are people who can't do things now that they used to be able to do. And there are people that, can do things now that they used to not be able to do. If someone has an injury when they're young and they're so used to being able to just go and do whatever they want whenever they want. And then all of a sudden they got into a car accident and they can no longer do those things. And that is a reality as well. And maybe some of them heal from that. And it takes years maybe to heal from that, right? Or whatever the case may be. There are times in life when we can get a lot of this native plant gardening done. And then there are times in our life where we maybe can't get as much of it done or any of it done on our own. And so that's really all this video is about. It's just about the fact that let's just acknowledge that there are people out there that can't sit there on the ground and weed every single day. And there are people out there that can't just dig deep holes and plant trees every single day. Which, by the way, Trees from Seed is a great page on Facebook. If you guys need help planting trees, the easiest ways possible. Trees from Seed on Facebook is just fantastic, and you guys should check it out, because that truly is easier than digging a hole that's like this deep. It's to just, you know, kind of put a little cut in the soil, stick a seed or a berry or whatever in there, and then just close it back. And planting a bunch of those to try to get, you know, because, you know, the wildlife might come and eat some of your nuts, you know, that you've planted. But anyway, the point is, there are easier ways to do these things, and there are harder ways to do these things. And there are different stages of life that we're in. And there are just different people with different abilities. So there are so many layers to this. And so let's stop just shaming people for not doing things our way and for not doing as much as we do. And instead, let's just recognize that sometimes people are sick and they're injured or they're ill or they're in a time of their life where they can't do what they used to be able to do. And it's already hard enough when you feel like you can't do something that you really, really, really want to do and that you're really passionate about. It's already hard enough mentally to even deal with that. So let's not add to the issues, and let's just recognize that sometimes we can do some things and sometimes we can't, and it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to hire it out. And, you know, again, there's going to be people out there who can't do any of this because they don't have time or money or physical ability. And we shouldn't shame them either. Instead, we should focus on the fact that those of us who can do these things, we should cultivate that habitat for these people who can't cultivate it. You know, those people should be able to enjoy the fruits of our labor as well. If they can't do any of that physical labor work, there's nothing wrong with that. They just need to be able to enjoy what we have done and others have done, and just be able to see it and enjoy it. And so another thing is making gardens as accessible as possible. You know, making things wheelchair accessible. That is a really important thing to do. And even if only part of our gardens can be wheelchair accessible, I think that's a really great thing. So guys, thank you so much for being here and for hearing me out and listening to this video. And I just wanted everybody to understand that you're welcome here no matter what level of gardening you're at, no matter whether you're just watching or whether you're participating yourself. I don't care. I am so happy that you're here, and I hope that you enjoy these videos, and that I hope that you have a lovely day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please leave a comment down below and let me know your thoughts on this subject. And I think that this also is something that, to me, really matters when it comes to the way our society is structured too. I think there are some issues with the way that people are talked about based on their ability to work or not work on whatever it is. And so thank you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Brand new items are now available in the shop. Thanks so much to viewers like you for supporting the channel. To support the channel, like the video, comment, and subscribe. You can also support my work by buying art from me at macylu.com. Thanks for watching!